Hey everyone, this is Max with BuzzTox, and I'm back with a Jon Snow predictions video. In this video, I talk about what will happen to Jon Snow in Game of Thrones Season 7, episode by episode. I just want to issue a huge spoiler warning to everyone out there because I'm going to be talking about plot points that actually have been confirmed for Game of Thrones Season 7. But I will also be adding a really in-depth analysis as to what I personally think will happen to Jon Snow and what should happen to Jon Snow. But anyways, the last time we saw Jon, he was gathering bannermen to help him fight against Ramsay Bolton in what turned out to be the Battle of the Bastards. Jon ended up having a victory with help from Sansa bringing in the Veil. And at the end of the day when they captured Winterfell, Jon didn't want to be king in the north. He actually wanted Sansa to be queen in the north because she is a Stark. But with the turn of events, Lyanna Mormont elected Jon Snow to be the White Wolf, the king in the north. And this ended up surprising Littlefinger and surprising Sansa, and it kind of created a bitterness between Jon and Sansa. But now Jon is left running the north to the best of his ability while the White Walker threat is still looming. And that takes us to episode 1, which will really focus on the drama between Sansa and Jon. Because Sansa is actually pretty bitter because she was expecting to be queen. She was the one who brought in the Veil and saved Jon and ended up taking back Winterfell. And on top of being underappreciated, she has a different leadership style than Jon and pretty much disagrees with all of Jon's policy. And we will see this drama unfold in the Great Hall, and it's going to be a council with all of the noble houses. And the drama is really going to be focused on the houses that didn't support Jon in the Battle of the Bastards. We're going to have House Manderley, Glover, and Kerwin. And these houses have already been forgiven because they did not support Jon in Battle of the Bastards, but they're going to move on from this conflict. Instead, this council is going to focus on the houses that helped Ramsay Bolton fight against Jon Snow and his supporters. And the primary focus on these houses is going to be Karstark and Umber. And we're going to see two characters that represent these houses. A young northern girl named Elise Karstark and a young boy who ends up being an Umber. And these two kids would be next to power because both of their fathers, we find out, have died in the Battle of the Bastards. And it's here where we're going to see their different leadership styles. Sansa grew up in King's Landing to learn survival and loyalty. She learned from Littlefinger, and she's learned how to keep her position. However, Jon is all about integrity and honor. He idolizes his father and will do whatever is right, even if it is to his own detriment or to his death. And in this conflict, Sansa wants to eliminate all of the family houses who are loyal to Ramsay, because she sees them as not trustworthy. Whereas Jon wants to pardon them. He doesn't want to pull children from their homes, and he believes that they can create a new world with everyone who had a hand in building the old one. And in this council, we're going to have huge argument, and Jon is just going to press how these children are not responsible for the actions of their fathers. And we're going to see Lady Mormont agree with Sansa because Lady Mormont has supported Jon from the very beginning. And this will leave Jon ignoring their counsel and actually dismissing Elise Karstark and putting her in command of Karhold. But Jon will continuously stress the issue that these small politics does not matter, because they have to come together because the long night is coming. And he's going to say, Dragonglass kills White Walkers, and now it's more valuable than gold. And we're going to hear from Tormund, Brienne, Sansa, Davos, and Lady Mormont speaking of the looming threat and what they're going to do to stop it. And this is where Davos is going to suggest Dragonstone. He spent some time there with Stannis, and he knows that it has a ton of Dragonglass. And at the end of this council, they come to the conclusion that Jon must go to Dragonstone, and Davos must accompany him. And that starts off episode 2, and in this episode we're going to see Jon Snow sitting in front of the weirwood tree sharpening his sword with Ghost by his side, which is going to pay homage to Jon's true father, Ned Stark. And while Jon is sharpening his sword, he's going to be accompanied by Sansa, and she's going to apologize to Jon for fighting him over the Umber-Karstark conflict, and she's going to say that he's right. But to Sansa, she's just lying to kind of build her relationship with Jon. And she'll bring up the conversation that they had earlier about trusting each other. And she tells Jon that Littlefinger does not want him to be in power. She tells Jon that he feels like no outside house will rally behind Jon because he's a bastard and he's a wildling lover. And here Sansa's strategically trying to make Jon feel like he isn't right for the throne, because he has certain values tethered to his name, and his name is worthless. And because of these reasons, it could affect the North. But Jon just brushes it off, so then Sansa gives him a letter from Daenerys. And Jon gives it a read, and it's summoning all the lords of Westeros to swear fealty to her. And Jon continues to tell Sansa that he's just going there for Dragonglass, and he doesn't know if she's crazy like her father. So then Sansa goes on to ask if he will swear fealty to Daenerys. And Jon tells her that we do not kneel. And you see the disagreement on Sansa's face, but Jon tells her that while he's gone, she will be in charge in his stead. In another scene, we see Jon go into the crypts of Winterfell, and we see him stop by Ned Stark's tomb. And we're going to see him say some words about the king he wants to be, and how Ned has had a huge impact on Jon's life. But then Littlefinger shows up, and he starts talking about secrets, and how unfortunately some never have the light of day, because death shuts them away. And Littlefinger will constantly press Jon on the story of his father, how Ned could forsake his honor for one night to produce a bastard. Then Jon is going to grab Littlefinger and throw him against the wall and tell him how he doesn't want him to be playing his little games. And he tells him how Littlefinger's games won't work on him and it won't work on Sansa. And Littlefinger just goes on to say something that will hint towards Lyanna Stark being Jon's mother. And the reason why he's hinting at this information is because Littlefinger is in a bind. Right now he doesn't want to join an alliance with Cersei because Daenerys is coming in with dragons. And he knows to keep his position he needs to be with the winning side of the war. So he's going to want to side with Daenerys. But knowing that Jon is going south to Dragonstone to parley with Daenerys suggests to Littlefinger that the Starks and the Targaryens will join an alliance. So he needs Jon on his side. But he also doesn't want Jon to be king in the north, because he needs somebody in power there who he can trust and will push his own agenda, and that's Sansa. So if he plays Jon as a Targaryen card, it delegitimizes him to the throne of Winterfell. Jon can be pushed out, Sansa can be brought in. And Jon will be stuck between two family names with nothing to rule. And that's what Littlefinger did. He put a nugget of information in Jon's head to make him think about it. And then that takes us to the next scene when Jon is leaving Winterfell with Davos and a small force of Stark men. Tormund is going to be left behind to protect and lead his people, the Free Folk. And Ghost is going to be left at Winterfell. They're going to watch as Jon leaves the new Winterfell where Sansa is in charge.
Let me give you some advice, bastard. Never forget what you are. The rest of the world will not. Wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you.
What the hell do you know about being a bastard?
All dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes.
Jon and Davos will then arrive in Dragonstone, and they're greeted by Tyrion, Missandei, and a horde of Dothraki. And him and Tyrion haven't seen each other since they were on the wall. And the two have a really friendly meeting. Tyrion tells Jon, "You've come a long way, bastard. You must have forgotten what you are." But Jon is going to reply and say, "I haven't. I wear it like armor." Then Tyrion and Missandei take them up the stairs to go see Daenerys. And on their way up, we see Jon staring at all these dragons and is just amazed. But then as Jon is staring at one of them, it ends up landing right in front of him on the stairs. And this is a green dragon named Rhaegal. And Rhaegal will just look at Jon intensely and then fly away. And this scene is really to start to hint Jon's connection to dragons. When they walk in, they see Quono, the Dothraki leader, standing by the door, and they also see Melisandre standing a far distance from them in the corner of the room. And when they're taken to her throne room, Daenerys is there with Varys. Grey Worm is currently away, fighting a war. They have some small talk, and then Daenerys asks them to swear fealty. But Jon refuses and instead talks about why he's there. He talks about the White Walkers and the Long Night and how the war is coming. And she doesn't believe him, so Davos makes a huge speech on how great Jon is, and how his integrity and honor outweighs everything, and tries to mention his resurrection, trying to hint that Jon is more important than she thinks. And Tyrion does vouch for Jon, as he knows Jon and he knows that he isn't crazy. And during this conversation, Jon also brings up Melisandre and all the things that she's done. But Daenerys assures Jon that Melisandre is now under her command, and Jon will not interfere with what she does with her. But then Daenerys goes on to say that she cannot force Jon to swear fealty, but they can work together as allies, and that she is interested in hearing more about the looming White Walker threat, and gives Jon and Davos and their men a place to stay in Dragonstone. In the next scene, we're going to see Jon and Daenerys together, and they're going to be walking through the crypts beneath Dragonstone. And this is where we're going to see the characters first connect. Jon's going to be talking about how these crypts remind him of Winterfell. And the environment they're walking through is covered in dragon bones and dragon skulls. But when they come out of the crypts and onto the beach, we see Theon on the beach getting the shit kicked out of him by his Ironborn men. Daenerys tells them to stop and let them be, and then Jon has his way with Theon. He yells at him for betraying his family, killing Robb, and dispersing the whole family. But Jon will tell him that he's going to spare him because he saved Sansa. And Theon goes on to tell Daenerys that they were attacked by Euron, and that Yara Greyjoy, Ellaria, and Tyene Sand were captured, while the rest are dead. And then Daenerys pulls him aside separately from everyone else and tells Theon that he must take the mantle as the leader of the Ironborn. And sometime after this, Daenerys is going to hear from Varys, and he's going to tell her that her army is encroaching on the Lannisters holding Highgarden. Varys is also going to tell her that he hears whispers of the Lannisters having a very large force holding Highgarden and in Casterly Rock. So Daenerys decides to go and thin them out on the back of Drogon. So Jon wishes her luck, and she leaves. And this takes us to episode 4, where a big battle is going to be fought with Daenerys and her army against all the Lannisters, including Jaime and Bronn. And in Dragonstone, we're going to have Jon, Missandei, Varys, Tyrion, and Davos. And we're just going to have a couple scenes with these characters. And Jon is going to tell the group about his frustration for all the bloodshed in this battle, and how the real war hasn't come yet. And he's going to say how all these soldiers are just meat for the Night King's army. And this is where Jon comes to the conclusion that the only way to get everyone on the same page is to give them a specimen of White Walker to prove their existence, to get everyone on the same page. We're going to see Jon get a raven from Winterfell, and it's going to state that Arya and Bran have arrived, and that they're awaiting his return. There's also going to be a segment from Bran where he's going to be stressing the White Walker threat and how they're on the move, and how he needs to talk to Jon face to face. And Jon is standing on the stairs of Dragonstone and sees Daenerys arrive with Drogon. And she lands on the beach, and Viserion and Rhaegal join her, and she's just spending time with her dragons. So we see Jon start making his way down to the beach. And he approaches Daenerys and tells her about the importance of catching a White Walker to try and bring everyone on the same side. He tells her how there's no point in any pointless bloodshed. He also expresses concern that they do need to have a meeting with Cersei. So hopefully at the end game, if they capture a specimen, they can try and get her on their side. And while Jon is speaking, Rhaegal, her green dragon, is fixated on Jon. And Daenerys seems to understand Jon's point of view, and she tells him that she's never seen Rhaegal or any of her dragons be so fixated on anyone other than herself. So she encourages Jon to come and pet Rhaegal. So in this scene, we're pretty much going to see Jon and Daenerys petting and hanging out with the dragons. But then Jorah arrives in Dragonstone, and he's cured of grayscale, and we see him meet everyone up at the castle. We're going to see him and Daenerys have a moment. We're going to see Jon meet Jorah, and he's going to tell him of his father Jeor and what a strong mentor he was for him. And Jon realizes that he has Jorah's sword, and he offers to give it back, but Jorah insists that it is his sword. But Jorah says that he does have something for Jon, and he gives him a letter from Sam. And this letter from Sam reads how to forge and reforge Valyrian steel, and how important that is for the Long Night. He also lays down some important facts he got in his studies about the White Walkers. And the letter overall makes people more concerned because it makes it seem more real. So then Jon is going to start a conversation about the letter. And he gets everyone to speak up and try and come up with an idea on what to do next. And this is where Davos speaks up. He mentions of a bastard boy named Gendry who he met in this very castle. Davos tells the story on how he saved the child from Melisandre, and he sent him back to King's Landing. And Davos doesn't question the boy's ability to follow Sam's instructions because he's really good at forging steel. So Davos himself volunteers to try and smuggle Gendry out of King's Landing. And he jokes that he's known for smuggling onions and not royal bastards. Tyrion decides to go as well. He wants to see Jaime and Bronn because he heard what happened in the fight between him and Daenerys, and he really wants to try and build up the relationship because it is a very tense relationship right now. And he wants to try and bring them over onto their side before more fighting happens. So Daenerys will let him go out of respect for Tyrion. And Jon tells the group about their mission to capture a White and how Jon is going to start sending out ravens to try and get a team together. In another scene, we're going to see Jon and Daenerys watching Davos and Tyrion leave for King's Landing. And this is going to be at sunset, and they're going to be standing on the stairs, probably talking about family and their fathers and just having a nice moment. And they're going to wait a couple of days for their return. And at the end of this episode, surprisingly, Davos, Gendry, and Tyrion arrive back on the shore of King's Landing. And Jon tells them that they have to leave now to capture a White. So Gendry is told that they haven't mined enough dragonglass to forge, so he has to come with them. They need all the help that they can get. Jon says that he sent out some ravens and that they should have more men awaiting them at Eastwatch by the Sea. So then the team leave to go capture White, and that includes Jon, Jorah, Gendry, Davos, and some Stark soldiers. Jon, Jorah, Gendry, and Davos will then arrive at Eastwatch by the sea, and they're going to arrive next to his second boat. The group are going to go through Eastwatch, and Jon is going to tell Davos to stay safe at Eastwatch and to guard the boats. Davos is going to stay put, and they're going to open the gate to the other side of the wall. They're going to be following trackings to a cave. And in this cave, they're going to meet Tormund, the Hound, Beric Dondarrion, and Thoros of Myr with some Wildling and Brotherhood Without Banner soldiers. And here is where they're going to discuss strategy and what they're going to do. Tormund explains to Jon that he got a new Valyrian steel sword from Brienne, the big burly woman that he loves. Tormund said that he gave it to the Hound because he's a big fucker. And what their plan is to go on the outskirts of the Horde and just try and pick one off and carry it together. Tormund also says that they have this really weird guy on a horse scouting the landscape for them. So Tormund says that they're awaiting his return, and then there's going to be a cut, and we're going to see Bran. If you want to know what happens in detail with Bran, check out my Bran predictions video. But in this scene, we're going to see the tourney of Harrenhal, and we're going to see Rhaegar give a crown of winter roses to Lyanna, and it's going to zoom in on these winter roses, and then come back to Jon staring at some winter roses in the ice cave. And we're going to see Benjen arrive, and Benjen and Jon reunite. Benjen brings news of minimal activity through a mountain range, and he thinks it's the best course, and they can use the narrow passages of the mountains as a field of attack to try and thin out the Horde, and they can try and lure one through it. So they set to leave the cave, and Jon seems noticeably stressed, and this is actually very significant for later. So in another scene, we're going to see the group walking through these really narrow routes and passages, and they're going to fall across a symbol of symbols made of dead bodies. And this is going to be a similar symbol to what we've seen before, but it's also going to be somewhat unique. It's going to be a spiral symbol, but it's going to have an open center. And in that open center is an Arctic white wolf. And Benjen's going to panic and say that they're going to have to immediately leave. But then the Arctic wolf is going to arise and start howling. And all the dead are going to wake up and start attacking the group. So then the group starts to run, and Benjen is riding ahead with his fireball thing and starts knocking everyone out of the way. So a couple people don't make it, and they finally make it to a thin clearance that opens onto a lake. And in their way is a polar bear. So Benjen is going to hit it on the side, hit it out of the way, and the group is going to get to run past it. However, this polar bear gets up just in time to grab Thoros of Myr and starts eating him alive. But this is what the group needed because it holds the Horde back and gives them time to make some distance. And they're going to sprint to the center of the lake, and they can't go anywhere else because they're surrounded by mountain. And then the snow starts to come in, and it makes it hard to see. Everyone forms a circle to make sure they can take on their enemies from every direction. And while this is happening, Benjen is running out in the distance, kind of thinning out the Horde as they're running in on them. And in their circle, they're starting to fend it off. Some whites are coming in and attacking, but the Horde itself is coming closer. And it seems like everything is done, but then Daenerys arrives on her dragons. Drogon and Viserion are burning up the Horde before it gets to Jon and his group, where Rhaegal runs straight to Jon and jumps right in front of Jon and is defending him against any incoming whites. Here we're going to see a sequence of dragons fighting and Rhaegal defending the group, and then eventually all three dragons are going to surround the group of 12 men and fend them off. And Daenerys is going to start boarding people on her dragons. Jon refuses to go until everyone gets on a dragon, and in this whole skirmish he's able to quickly grab a white and throw it up to Tormund and Gendry, who are actually on Rhaegal. And Jon is actually able to look at Rhaegal and send him away with the white, Tormund, and Gendry. And the Hound and Jorah are already on Drogon with Daenerys, and he's burning incoming whites, and Jon is about to climb Viserion to join Beric Dondarrion. However, Viserion is overwhelmed by whites and is actually knocked over on its side, and Jon falls off and Beric falls off, so they race to get on Drogon. Beric makes the climb, and Jon barely makes it, but then is dragged off by more whites. And Dany has to leave because Drogon is getting attacked, so Daenerys leaves Jon. And a lot of the whites are overwhelming Viserion, and Viserion is getting killed, and Jon is getting attacked. And Benjen comes and clears out the Horde as best as he can and sends Jon away on his horse. Jon ends up making it some distance, but the horse trips and Jon ends up falling. And Jon is sitting there watching as the Horde is coming into him. And we're going to see Jon close his eyes and just take a deep breath. And then you will hear the roar of Rhaegal. So Jon is going to summon Rhaegal like Daenerys did Drogon in Season 5. We're going to see Rhaegal burn all the whites, and he's going to eventually save Jon. And Jon is going to fly away on Rhaegal. We're going to see the Night's King point of view of watching Jon fly away. And we're going to see him raise Viserion as a new undead ice dragon. And we're going to end the episode at Eastwatch with everyone licking their wounds and Jon swearing that he will do anything for Daenerys to help with this threat, and that Viserion didn't make it and he's risen as the Night King's mount. And after that big conflict, we're going to see them arrive back at Dragonstone, and they're going to drop off Gendry so we can start forging Valyrian steel. And there's going to be a group that leaves to King's Landing, and that's Daenerys, Jon, Tyrion, Davos, Missandei, the Hound, Theon, Varys, Jorah, and Quono. And this is where we're going to see the Dragon Pit meeting with all of the characters. We're going to see Bronn take the group and escort them into the Dragon Pit. We are going to see all of our favorite characters together. We're going to see Cersei, Daenerys, Jon Snow, Tyrion, Jaime, Davos, Missandei, the Hound, Theon, Brienne, Varys, Bronn, Jorah, Euron, Qyburn, the Mountain, Quono, and Podrick Payne. And this scene is just going to be laced with interactions. But it's going to be centered around the focal point of the white that they captured. They're going to take him out, and they're going to realize that it cannot be killed. So Jon is going to kill it with Dragonglass. So then this is where Daenerys is going to lay down her terms. Cersei must surrender and help with the White Walker threat, and she will be given Casterly Rock to rule and live out her days with her brother Jaime. And then Daenerys leaves a threat and says if Cersei does not surrender, that Daenerys will take Drogon into the Red Keep and pull her out herself. And this is where they pretty much settle the score, and Cersei says that she will join them as allies. And then they split. Cersei goes to the Red Keep, and the group end up traveling to Winterfell. And this group is Daenerys, Jon, Tyrion, Davos, Missandei, the Hound, Theon, Brienne, Varys, Jorah, Quono, and Podrick. And during this time, Bran is going to find out that Jon's name is actually Aemon Targaryen. And from Bran's point of view, he's going to watch the wall fall down with the Night King riding an undead Viserion. And this is going to leave panic because Winterfell is currently under threat, and Jon and his whole team are actually away and traveling there. And dare I say, on the way to Winterfell, Jon and Daenerys may have sex. I'm not 100% sure, but it is possible. But that is it, everybody, for my predictions video on Jon Snow. I have more videos on Jon Snow coming that I'm very excited about, but it is a lot of work and a lot of writing, so you can expect that soon. I'm going to be writing even more predictions. I'm going to be trying to get them out faster. This one is very taxing because I had to create a lot of stuff and try and write the story that I wanted to tell. That also included all of the leaks that we've seen in the past. But let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Please share this, like it down below, and leave a comment. But until then, I'll see you guys later.